Mr. Velenkosini Hlabisa. We are also joined by the Deputy Minister of CoGTA, Dr. Namani Dixon Masamula, and the other Deputy Minister of CoGTA, Prince Benson Ngamashe. We are also joined by the Director General of the Department of Cooperative Governance, Mr. Mbulelo Changana. We are also joined by the head of the National Disaster Management Center, Dr. Sithole. We are also joined by Mr. Ezekiel Sibeho from SOURCE. The process from here is going to be as follows. Minister will give remarks. After Minister's remarks, we will then take SOURCE that will give us a forecast for the summer season. Then the National Disaster Management Center will then present the contingency plan. Without any waste of time, I'm going to request the Honorable Minister Hlabisa to give us the remarks. Minister.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Greetings to the Deputy Ministers for CoGTA, Dr. Masemola and Prince Bans Ngamashe, the Director General, the head of the National Disaster Management Center, the Provincial Disaster Management Centers, the representatives from the South African Weather Services, members of the media, and fellow South Africans, ladies and gentlemen, good morning on a Monday. Thank you for joining us today as we present South Africa's readiness for the upcoming summer season and our proactive measures for disaster preparedness. As indicated by the Program Director, we will also receive detailed presentation from the National Disaster Management Center as well as from the South African Weather Services, which will provide deeper insights into our strategies and plans for effectively managing potential disasters as we are approaching the summer season. With the growing risks posed by natural hazards such as floods, heat waves, veld fires, and droughts, our communities, infrastructure, and economy face significant threats. While the pressing realities of climate change have exacerbated some of these risks, others are unfortunately man-made, stemming from unsustainable practices and inadequate planning. We believe that recognizing this risk is the first step towards addressing them comprehensively. While we are all too familiar with the impacts of floods, droughts, and fires in our country, we must also acknowledge the emerging hazards that require our attention. The National Disaster Management Center will elaborate on these risks, shedding light on how they have evolved and what we must do to mitigate their effects. Given the continued negative impact of these hazards on the lives of South Africans, we understand that it cannot be business as usual. We understand that we must act decisively to safeguard the well-being of all citizens and protect our vulnerable communities. When we come to current state of affairs, our response and relief efforts. Just last week, we witnessed the devastating floods in Eastern Cape and in KwaZulu-Natal. These floods have resulted not only in tragic loss of life, but also in severe displacement, leaving many families without homes and essential support systems. We wish to take this opportunity to convey our deepest condolences to all the families affected by these calamities, as well as those families who lost their loved ones. Their grief serves as a painful reminder of the human cost of such disasters and highlights the urgency of our preparedness efforts. Implementation of relief measures is underway in all the affected areas, particularly the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality as one of the most affected areas last week. These relief measures are a collaborative effort by the organs of the state, private sector, NGOs, and individuals, with the focus on housing the displaced households in temporal evacuation facilities, providing hot meals, food parcels, blankets, mattresses, as well as giving the psychosocial support to the affected individuals. Damage assessments are underway to establish the extent of the damages and the required interventions. As CoGTA has been working tirelessly with disaster management structures, including the Provincial Disaster Management Center, to coordinate the response efforts to the recent heavy rains, we are also working closely with municipalities, the provincial government, especially in Eastern Cape, and other stakeholders to ensure that the affected communities receive necessary support, including food, shelter, and other essential services. The department will continue to monitor the situation and provide support to the affected communities. We would like to extend our sincere appreciation to all non-governmental organizations, the private sector, and individuals who continue to demonstrate the spirit of Ubuntu by providing support to the affected communities. Your efforts and generous contribution do not go unnoticed. When it comes to disaster management funds, we acknowledge the challenges faced by the country in funding disaster interventions, mainly due to increased disaster damages, fiscal deficit, and competing priorities. The Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs is currently engaged with the National Treasury on other funding mechanisms to ensure sustainability. This requires also the involvement of the private sector and all relevant stakeholders to come on board in order to meet the challenges emanating from the effects of disaster. With the increasing number of disasters across the country, in 2023-2024, the department submitted a funding request to the National Treasury to support the affected groups of people and the organs of state with the reconstruction and rehabilitation of the damaged infrastructure. We want to assure all affected people in South Africa in general that we remain committed to partnering with local and national entities to strengthen disaster preparedness and response and rebuild our communities. I must share with the people of South Africa that once the Minister of Finance on Thursday table the medium-term budget review, I know as part of the executive there will be a substantial allocation in terms of grants to deal with the past disasters, including the levels at a municipality and provincial level. But I would want to respect the Minister of Finance to make such announcements on Thursday, and thereafter we will give details in as far as the funding that will be available as to how it is going to be allocated and ensured that it is spent within the time limits to attend the damage that was caused by disaster in the previous financial year, including the latest disaster throughout the country. The department is also leading the review of the country's disaster management system to address the challenges encountered, particularly in terms of capacity and resource constraints across all the spheres of government in order to ensure that we increase agility in the function, particularly in addressing the delays in undertaking assessments and implementing interventions by the organs of the state. Currently, the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agent, MISA, plays a pivotal role in supporting communities with capacity constraints when funds are available but could not be spent within a financial year. MISA is coming in to support municipalities that the available funds in relation to infrastructure are used within the financial year for the benefit of our communities. When it comes to summer season preparedness, as we prepare for the summer season, it is important that we collectively take the necessary measures to enhance our disaster readiness. We hope that today's discussions will illuminate our comprehensive strategies and ensure that we are equipped to respond swiftly and effectively to any emergencies that may arise from now throughout the summer season. Through our collaboration with key role players, we are committed to building resilience with our communities and fortifying our infrastructure against the impact of climate change and the extreme weather events. Together, we can work towards a safer, more prepared South Africa. In response, we have prepared the disaster management contingency plans by facilitating the National Disaster Management Center as guided by the South African Weather Service's Summer Seasonal Outlook. The key highlights of our plans include the following: the enhanced early warning systems. At the core of our preparedness is enhancing the early warning systems. We have strengthened our collaboration with South African weather services to ensure accurate, timely weather warnings reach every corner of our country, especially the vulnerable communities, by providing early information about potential hazards likely to happen, for instance, thunderstorm, flash floods, lightning, heat waves. We will empower our citizens to take necessary precautions and protect their lives and properties. Early warnings and early actions are the most effective means of saving lives. Secondly, seasonal climate forecast. The South African Weather Services forecast predicts wetter conditions in some areas and above normal temperatures nationwide. To bring everyone on board, the South African Weather Services will give a detailed presentation on this forecast once I have concluded my remarks. Thirdly, the multi-sectoral approach. Disaster management involves collective efforts from the government, the private sector, and the NGOs, ensuring an all-inclusive response. Search and rescue contingency planning is critical for efficiently responding to situations where individuals are lost or are in immediate danger. We are working with and collaborating with local emergency services, the National Sea Rescue Institute, South African Search and Rescue, and community volunteers. This is crucial to streamline operations and rescue response times. In partnership with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, we have initiated redistributing unused firefighting vehicles to bolster municipal firefighting capabilities, ensuring local services are better equipped for the challenges of the summer season. The proactive contingency planning. The department coordinated the preparation of multi-hazard contingency plans by all provinces through the responsive provincial disaster management centers to ensure a state of readiness within the province throughout the 9 provinces. The administrative and political structures in all provinces have been activated to be operational and ready for any disaster from now throughout the summer season. I am facilitating the Intergovernmental Committee on Disaster Management, and we had our last meeting yesterday evening. This committee is consisting of political leadership across the spheres of across the spheres to deliberate and provide strategic support on disaster management related issues within our respective legislative mandate. The Intergovernmental Committee on Disaster Management includes ministers, deputy ministers, MECs from 9 provinces, as well as SALCA, where we plan together how we will mitigate the challenges of disaster as we approach the summer season. Joint operation centers are activated across provinces to coordinate rapid responses to emergencies. Municipal fire services have also been engaged closely with provincial, municipal, and district disaster management centers to enhance their readiness through early warning systems, improved inter-agency communication, and pre-positioning firefighting resources in high-risk areas. In terms of field fires, we understand that field fires remain a significant threat, particularly in rural and agricultural areas. Fire services have implemented proactive measures, including enhanced maintenance of fire breaks and coordination with local fire protection services to mitigate field fire risk. Contingencies for special risks such as hazardous materials incidents involve trained hazardous material teams equipped to handle chemical spills, toxic releases, and other hazardous events. Search and rescue units are prepared for deployment to locate and assist victims during major incidents. Another critical area which we are going to embark on is public awareness campaigns. We are educating citizens on how to protect themselves and their communities from natural hazards, and call on you as members of the media to work with us in this regard. Disaster should not be the problem of the government. It must be a responsibility of every citizen, every stakeholder. Everybody should participate in how we mitigate the challenges of disaster so that collectively we can work together to save lives. Recognizing the high vulnerabilities associated with informal settlement, fire services are actively conducting community awareness campaigns, distributing fire safety materials, and maintaining community-based rapid response teams for immediate intervention, especially in informal settlements. We urgently call on all citizens to remain vigilant and responsive to the guidance, warnings, and safety tips of South African weather services, disaster management officials, and relevant authorities. These warnings and the safety tips we share are not just routine. They are critical and could mean the difference between life and death in moments of crisis. The safety of our communities is our high priority, and we plead with everyone to take these calls seriously. By staying informed and prepared, you protect yourself and contribute to the resilience of your neighbors and your loved ones. Another issue of great importance as we approach the summer season is the issue of initiation. An equally important task is preparing for the summer customary initiation season, which begins in December. To uphold the integrity of this significant tradition, we emphasize that the safety and well-being of all initiates must be prioritized as prescribed by the Customary Initiation Act of 2021. This legislation established the National Initiation Oversight Committee and the Provincial Initiation Coordinating Committees, which work collaboratively with traditional leaders, parents, and communities to monitor initiation practices and ensure that they comply with the legal and health standards. The Act is a vital tool for eliminating abuse and dangerous practices, aiming to safeguard young initiates through clearly defined norms and safety protocols. With the forecast of the extreme summer heat, we urge that all initiates undergo the pre-season health checks, stay hydrated, and have access to medical care as necessary. To further protect our youth, the initiation schools must secure parental consent and must comply with health guidelines and register at least 3 months before each initiation season. We call on all South Africans to work with us and play their part by reporting illegal initiation schools to law enforcement to prevent the exploitation and the endangerment of young initiates. We saw in June, we lost a number of young boys who died in the process of the initiation. This should come to an end. A good culture should not result to the loss of life. This summer season, we call upon all stakeholders to act responsibly and ensure that our youth experience this tradition with dignity, safety, and respect for cultural heritage. In conclusion, while the risks posed by the upcoming summer season are significant, we face them with a solid plan, a unified response, and a deep commitment. The path to resilience is paved with collaboration, preparedness, and dedication. Together, we will overcome the challenges ahead and emerge more robust as a nation to face and mitigate the climate change that has come to stay with us. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to take the nation on board in terms of our readiness and calling upon every South African to participate, that we work together to eliminate the negative effects of climate change. Thank you very much, Program Director, as well as the people from the media. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Now, we colleagues, we are going to next take the two presentations. Then we can deal with the Q&As afterwards. We are going to start with SOS. That is Sebeho.
Okay. Thank you, Program Director. I will start by greeting Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Ministers, the Director General, as well as the Deputy Director General, members of the media. My name is Ezekiel Sibeho. I come from the South African Weather Service, and the purpose of us being here today is to present the seasonal forecast for the upcoming summer. As a start, one of the main climate drivers that drive our weather over the summer rainfall areas is a phenomenon called the El Nino Southern Oscillation. By definition, the El Nino Southern Oscillation means the periodic fluctuations of sea surface temperatures over the Pacific Oceans, which in turn affect the air pressure. That in turn drive the different weather patterns across the world. In South Africa, during the negative phase of this ENSO, which is called La Nina, we usually, not always, but usually expect above normal rainfall. And when it's in its negative state, which is called El Nino, as was the case last year, we experience below normal rainfall. And on to the prediction of this important climate driver. The graph on the right indicate how it is predicted to be in the coming season. It is currently in the neutral phase, and initially a few months ago all the forecasts were indicating a negative phase or a cooler phase of ENSO, which is usually good for summer rainfall areas in South Africa. However, the latest forecast indicates that at best it will be a very weak La Nina. There are even some indications that it could be stay on the neutral state of ENSO, which is not good for the summer rainfall areas. This then means it being in a weak state or neutral state. It makes the, especially on the rainfall side of things, the predictions for the seasons quite difficult. The current forecast shows that there are areas where there is still above normal rainfall that is expected, but over those areas, the likelihood of that forecast is very low. The other phenomenon or the other factor with the current state of the forecast is the length of the expected La Nina. It is expected to be very short compared to previous times, and that as well does not bode well for the summer rainfall parts of the country. As the Minister has already alluded to, the seasonal forecast for the temperatures remains above normal for the whole country, for both the daytime as well as nighttime temperatures. So there needs to be some extra caution taken in that regard. The uncertainty, in closing, the uncertainty that is there with regards to the seasonal forecast for the rainfall highlights the importance of the close monitoring of the shorter term range forecast, as those will be the ones that we rely on in order to make the decision going forward. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ntate Sibeho. We will ask Dr. Sitole. Yeah, this one. Doesn't work.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, colleagues from South African Weather Services, members of the media. I'm going to be very short because some of the areas have been covered by the Minister. Let me indicate that as we've got 9 provinces, in all 9 provinces, we've got provincial disaster centers. Then when you go to the municipalities, we do have municipal disaster centers. And all those centers, when there are disasters, we activate them. And at national, we are based here in Centurion. We have a joint operation command center. That is a joint operations which coordinate all the reports, all the activities, what happened in provinces, and then we can make a decision in terms of what is the next step. But all the provinces, they've got delegated powers also to make those powers or those actions as well. Just quickly on the issues of the summer seasons, some of the areas here, the Minister has already presented them. Our plan, it focuses on the preparedness capability, which is very important, because as and when we are approaching summer season or a winter season, and then we have to prepare the communities using the South African Weather Services, the forecast. But also the response arrangement, we work with all the stakeholders, and those stakeholders and the resources that have been activated as and when we're approaching the summer season. Just quickly, I'm not trying to run this thing very long, but just to put the whole presentation into context, you will see that sometimes disasters happen at the municipality space, and there's always a confusion to say, when do we then become involved as national government or as provinces? But let me indicate that our structures are so integrated in such a way that when disasters happen at the local level, immediately the provincial disaster centers and those resources, immediately they go and assist the affected municipalities. Of course, the National Disaster Center also bring their resources as well. Quickly, at national, the minister, he did touch on some of the structures, but maybe just to put them in the sketch format. At national, we have the Intergovernmental Committee on Disaster Management, as minister has indicated, is chaired by the minister, but also at national, we have got an advisory committee at national which advise the whole of government in terms of how we operate. When we have to manage each and every disaster as they happen at the municipality space, we have some of the task teams which we activate so that if something happened in a particular municipal space, then we don't have everybody run around, but we have got a center which is coordinating in terms of the reliefs, the food, the blanket, the mattresses, and so on and so on. Lastly, I've already indicated in terms of some of the structures which we have, but maybe quickly, let me just indicate, we have net joins. You might have seen when there are big events, the net joins do the media briefings. In our case, you have disasters which are more at the security space. Then the net joins we then lead, and disaster management we then support the net joins. Where they are disaster related, and then we then support the net joins. Of course, we've got fire services, which are first responders. And let me indicate that when you go to all the municipalities, all our fire stations, they are on high alert during the summer seasons so that they're able to assist the affected communities. Lastly, we have the urban search and rescue team. This is a team, ladies and gentlemen, which can be deployed in any part of the world. It has been classified by the United Nations, and it has all the skills. It's a multifaceted team with all the skills. It can do rescues. It can do all sorts of rescue which you can find around the world. So we have this kind of a team. Program Director, thank you very much. I will end up here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sithole, and Adesebego, and the Minister. Colleagues, it's time now to take few questions. Indicate the media house you represent, and then you can then ask a question. Let's start here, then we can then go online. Let's start in the house first. Any questions in the house? Yes. You can go.
All right, thank you so much. Two questions. One to the Water Service and to the Minister. Minister,
Introduce yourself.
sorry. My name is Peter Mulamane from Kaya News. Minister, you mentioned that you have requested funding from the National Treasury, which will be announced on Thursday. How much have you requested? And what were the reasons? How did you supplement your request, Minister? To the Water Service, can you please, just to make it simpler, in a layman's language, the forecast for the summer December period? Are we expecting more rain? Are we expecting flooding? So that people can also prepare themselves while we are waiting for campaigns from government and municipalities as they come to the different areas. Just give us a picture, just a quick picture as to what are we expecting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take another one. Okay, let's go online. Is there anything online? Okay, thank you very much. Minister can take the first one of funding, and Mr. Sebeho on the forecast.
Thank you very much, Pitso, for your question. Let me respond in this way, Pitso, and for the benefit of the people of South Africa. Our country has been experiencing disaster one after the other. And it has been requests coming from municipalities, from provinces, one request after the other. As I have said, even the latest last week, from time to time, even at a delayed responses, we get requests from provinces and from municipalities. And we submitted our request to the Minister of Finance. I think what is going to be more important and pleasing is that under prevailing circumstances and financial constraints, the Minister on Thursday will be making an announcement as to how much is going to be afforded to the request we submitted. I do not like to work on figures of request, because ordinarily requests always run higher. Yet the affordability, which is a reality, goes lower than what we require and wish we can have. Under the prevailing circumstances, because we are involved in the process, we are satisfied that the Minister, having looked at the pace, the affordability of the country, and the priorities in terms of the extent of damage, he will make an informed decision to announce on Thursday. And on the basis of that announcement, we will be rolling out those allocations and giving the necessary support for our municipalities, provincial governments to be able to fix the damage. Yes, of course, if you look at what we received as a request from various spheres of governments, it amounts to more than 12 billions, even if it is not conclusive, because there are delays in bringing the reports, but there is a figure of that amount which we understand very well. Under prevailing circumstances, in as far as the fiscal is concerned, it will not be feasible to get the full amount as requested. But what will be possible under prevailing circumstances will make a difference. I think what we must invest on much is preventing disaster, then responding to disaster. Predictions can be made, but the truth of the matter, if we look from the latest happenings, we had a snow. I'm sure we were all excited when they said there will be a snow, and we said, oh, well, we will have a snow, something which we used to see happening in overseas countries, and the snow became a problem when it arrived. Now, we think we must not leave anything to chance. That is why we are saying, let us be ready, and any warning. Now we know we are living in a period of climate change. Any warning that South African weather services will give must be taken seriously. And the people of South Africa must cooperate. When the levels are reported to be at level 6, we will need to take drastic steps where people must be relocated. We will need to do so. And we will ask the cooperation of our people when they have to be relocated to safer areas to respond accordingly until the heavy rains are over and go back to their respective areas. We will be working, as we are working together with our other departments, in order to try to see the reallocation of funds so that especially people who are living in flood-prone areas are relocated permanently, because we cannot keep on removing them when there is an alert, allowing them to go back. We need to get permanent reallocation to safer areas and ensure that no one goes to those areas that are flood prone with the hope that they will be reallocated areas, because there is a problem which people do. You provide them a safer settlement, they allow people to be rented in those areas, they go back to floodplains because they know the government will respond. That is why we are saying we need the cooperation of everybody. You ask a question, South African Weather Services will come to respond. Are we expecting a difficult summer? I think the point is, when we are approaching winter, everybody or every parent buys a sufficient dress code for his or her child, because we know we are approaching winter season. Now, we know under the prevailing climate change, we must expect difficult, heavy rains. And the call, therefore, let us get ready. When the alerts are made by South African Weather Services, let us respond swiftly. When people are requested to move away from areas that will be affected, let us get the maximum cooperation. When alerts are made, every sector, be our schools, be our churches, be the NGOs, be everybody, let us participate in ensuring that we communicate the message widely in order to save lives. That is why we are making this statement as early as now, while we're still going to have a month of November and December. Our municipalities have been given an instruction requesting that the people whom we will need during summertime, during the summer season, should not go to leave. They can only go to leave once the summer season is over, so that when floods occur, we should not experience a problem that people are on leave, they are not within the proximity, some have gone to other provinces, and we lose life, yet we have people who can operate the equipment that could have saved lives in terms of fire and also in terms of floods. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Tate Molemane. I will try to explain it as simple as possible while still staying technically correct. So a seasonal forecast basically refers to the expected conditions, the average conditions expected for that season. So we normally compare it what is usual during that time of the year, talking about above normal rainfall and below normal rainfall, which then the forecast will say, as it says in this particular case, that there is a very low likelihood of above normal rainfall. So what the current forecast is basically saying is that it does not look good for rainfall in the summer rainfall areas, which is basically the eastern parts of the country. However, the picture is not complete by just looking at this year. If you look at what happened last year, we also had below normal rainfall. So this coming on top of that will then give you a better picture. A final qualifier to that is that even though it's below normal rainfall or the likelihood for above normal rainfall is very low, that does not rule out the possibilities of short-term extreme weather events. So even during a very below normal rainfall season, you can still have flooding events that happens over 2 or 3 days. And that sort of emphasizes the fact that I was trying to make earlier, that especially under these current conditions, we need to closely monitor the short-range forecast, as those will be able to pick up those extreme events like flooding, which can still happen even when we're expecting below normal rainfalls. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister and Tate Sebego. Colleagues, last round of questions. Nothing online. Thank you very much, Minister, Deputy Ministers, DG, the Head of Disaster Management Center, Tate Sebego. We've come to the end of our briefing and we thank you very much. Thank you.